Sattler Files.
You're with the Sattler Files. This is Murray Korf, and joining me is Gary Jackson from Gary Jackson Consulting to talk to us a little bit about business planning. And g'day, Gary.
G'day, Murray. How are you today?
Well, thank you. We're going to talk about aspects of developing a business plan that a lot of people who start small businesses ignore.
That's correct. Most people who start a business think they've got a really great idea, so they put up a plaque and off they go without giving it any real thought and not thinking about things like the competition, what they're offering differently. So I thought it'd be a good idea just to talk through primarily three of the things that are going to bring you undone if you don't do them properly. And so the first one is really looking at your competition, reviewing the competition.
That seems like intuitive, but a lot of people don't do it, do they?
No, I was consulting to a client just recently who is in an industry that has a lot of competition, particularly online competition.
Yeah.
And my first question was, have you actually looked at what these people are doing? They said, oh, no, we're not interested in what they're doing. I'm thinking, well, maybe we got a problem here.
Why would you not be interested in what your competition was doing in the market that you're about to enter?
I think it boils down to this perception that, because it's me, I'm better than them. But as we were talking with last week, you can't just base your decision to go into business based on price or brand. You've actually got to look at what the market wants. And in this particular area, which was promotional products, what's been happening is we've got big companies out there, and I'll mention a couple. You've got Embroidered Me and so on, who have done the traditional model. They've got the store, you go in, you pick out your shirt, you say you want this logo on it, and off you go. But then you get people in the market like Vistaprint, for example, who are now tackling the market of clothing and so on. What they're doing is saying, well, okay, you can go online, upload your logo, doesn't matter what format it is, and we'll print one shirt if you want. But if you go to somewhere like Embroidered Me, they're going to say, well, we need a minimum of 5 or 10. And what the market is saying is we want to be able to buy one of or two of. We don't want to have to buy 50 or 100 of them. We're not that concerned about the price. What we're concerned about is that we can get that one product. So understanding what your competition is doing allows you then to make some informed decisions about the way you want to take your market, which is another topic we're going to talk about in a minute. But the reality is businesses should always create some sort of strategy or plan around what they are going to do, how they're going to do it, and how they're going to measure it. One of the first things that we do as a company is we say, well, okay, Murray, what is it you actually want to achieve? We get that information from you, and we know you know your business. It's our job to know your industry. And if we look at industry trends, you might be paddling a canoe up a very dry river in a very short time if you don't take note of what the trend is in the industry. And as an example, and we were talking about this before we came on air, in the 1960s, 70s and early 80s, we had these black vinyl things called records, and they came in 33s or 45s, and if you were lucky, you still had some 78s hanging around. We also had those 8-track machines that were massive in cars. You stick them in, and everybody thought 8-track was as good as you could. It was
as good as it was going to be.
Yeah. Then some bright spark released this thing called a compact disc. That was in the early 1980s.
Yes.
It wiped out cassettes, it wiped out 8-tracks, and it wiped out vinyl in under 2 years. And there were a lot of retail outlets that were selling the vinyl, and they've got hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of stock. Now they have to replace it all with a little shiny disc that is exactly the same content, but I've got all of this wasted plastic and I can't recover that. So the smart retailers, what they did was they started cutting down on stocks of the vinyl and went very innovative and went to compact disc. And even with the cassette tapes, they kind of cut those out very, very early on. But there were a lot of very large record chains. One of the ones here in Perth was Plaza Records. They had a number of stores in the small shopping centres. They went broke overnight because they didn't look at what the trend was for compact disc. Plus, they didn't have the capital to be able to afford to replace all of the stock. And now we've got the onset of the iTunes revolution, and what we're seeing is that the traditional record store, so your Sanity Records and those sorts of things, are now starting to feel the pinch because people can go online and say, I just want one track off the album, not the whole album, or I just want to have a look at the trailer of this film before I download it or buy it. So the trend is now moving more and more. And as we were saying before we came on air, the next trend, according to Randy Gage in his book, which is called Risky is the New Safe, will be each of us will have our own dedicated TV channel. We'll have our music on there. We'll have our TV shows. We'll have our movies and all that kind of stuff. And that's not that far away.
No, it certainly isn't. And, of course, the thing about it is in reviewing your competition, you've got to make sure, I guess, that you've got an offer that actually works.
Absolutely.
That is either... Well, it has to be better than your competition, really, in some way that you're able to sell.
That's one of the things that a lot of small businesses don't understand, that there are 100,000 plumbers out there. There's 100,000 hairdressers out there. What's going to make me come and use your service? What's the unique selling proposition? What are you going to give me as a consumer that's better or different from your competition? And many companies forget that they do have one very unique factor, and that's the owner or the people that are doing the business. So in my business, I'm the unique selling proposition. So sell me, brand me. You know, if you are going to be coming into my company for consulting advice, you get to talk to me in the process somewhere along the line. So in my case, we use myself and my business partner, Ken Smale, as the unique selling proposition. And in Ken's case, he's got 20 years plus experience in a particular field. And as a result of that, we do very well with clients that are needing help bringing their websites into page one of Google. But our unique selling proposition is Ken and myself, plus we've branded a piece of software that we've got as a unique piece of software that does this all for us. If you're a hairdresser, what's the unique selling proposition for you as a hairdresser? What is it that you've done that nobody else has done? What is it you can offer? And it might just be something just a little bit different or a little bit more than your competition. The other thing that I find quite incredible with, and we'll take the hairdressing industry as an example here, probably about 80% of hairdressers don't actually have an internet presence as such. And when you consider that 80% of consumers will go online to check you out before they buy, you're kind of missing a lot of the industry.
You absolutely are. I agree with that 100%, because so many times even people that I know who are not really all that computer savvy will always give it a go to try and find something online, because we don't have yellow pages anymore that we used to use. That's a thing of the past, and who saw that coming? As they were such useful things as for footrests, weren't they, really? Or sticking your computer monitor on it. But that's the reality, isn't it? That if you don't have an online presence, well, then you really are halving your chances potentially of getting a client.
It's more a case of your reputation.
Yeah.
I think it's expected these days that you have a website, you have a Facebook page, you have a LinkedIn account, you have a Pinterest account. So these are ways that your potential customers can see what you actually do and what you deliver. And as we've discussed previously, the whole social media revolution now is that what we used to talk about over a cup of coffee, we now talk about on our smartphone or our tablet. We don't actually do a lot of face-to-face anymore, or as much as we used to. And the internet is being very much at the forefront of people's research into what product or service should I use. They will certainly ask their friends, but ultimately it's going to come down to, I like that price, I'll buy it. And can I get in now?
So there's lots of ways that you can review your competition. You just listed them: Facebook,
Absolutely.
Pinterest, having a website and so on. And most of those places will have comments from other clients, won't they?
A lot of them do, particularly things like Facebook. There's a new, well, not new, it's been around about 3 or 4 years now. On many pages, you can actually put a comment about, or it's called Rank This Business, and Google provide that service. So you can actually put a comment in there about how your service was. And I think if you look at sites like TripAdvisor and you're looking at a particular hotel, for example, you can read all the comments from the people who stayed there about this particular hotel. And once you finish it, you then say, well, okay, maybe I don't want to go there.
Yes. Or that looks really good.
Yeah. So I think if we look at the process of how consumers are looking for product, then we can start to manage how our competition looks at it. Another example of what you can do, it's very, very simple. You just go onto Google and you create what's called an AdWords account. It doesn't cost you anything. It's totally free. You can go in there and do a search for what people are searching for. So if you want to find out how many people are searching for hairdressers in Rockingham, or how many people are searching for roller skating rinks in Baldivis, for example, it will tell you. So you now have a very clear understanding of what the business traffic for your service is like in your area. It's one of the key things that I certainly use with my clients. Also understanding that Perth is a kind of different demographic to lots of people. If you live in Mandurah or Rockingham, you'll still search for a particular product in Perth. So although we're saying there might be 0 searches for your product in Rockingham, they could be searching for Perth. So you've got to be able to kind of pull out the information. But using things like the AdWords as a search tool gives you information straight away. So if you're thinking of setting up a plumbing business in Baldivis or a plumbing business in Joondalup, for example, you do a search. Okay, how many people in Joondalup are searching for plumbers? Now I know roughly what sort of volume I'm likely to get. Is it worth my while putting a plumbing store into those areas? Well, it might be, it might not be. So using those tools that are now readily available and free gives us a lot more information. As I've spoken about before, your local municipality has a document they put out every year that shows where they're growing, how they're growing, what the demographic of people are. And one of the things that I think is important to look at in that area is a thing called psychographics, which is on your list. I'm jumping around.
Psychographics is something that I do know a fair bit of.
Cool.
I don't know a fair bit about it. I certainly know something about it.
Yeah. Basically, it's just what your customers value, what their lifestyles are, what their habits and interests are. And if you can target your product or service to that area, because as we know, people buy based on what they want, not necessarily on what they need, then you can start to fine-tune your target. Your
offer.
Yeah.
And your offer. Just getting back to comment sections, and when we're talking about reviewing of your competition, and you look at Pinterest and Facebook and so on, are they, if you're reviewing your competition, do you think that's the comments that are on there are to be trusted? And by that I mean, are they put on there by the proprietor of the business? Are the bad ones edited out? Is it something that is a reliable barometer of what that business is doing?
I think it's an indicative idea. I mean, certainly there are people who will put false testimonials up there. Because they're told to put testimonials. And if you're going to put testimonials up, the best thing to do is put video testimonials, because then you're actually going to see the person as a real person. But if you're putting testimonials up there, don't cheat, because you will get caught out, because somebody in Facebook somewhere's going to say that was not the case.
Rubbish.
Yeah.
That's one of the hazards of social media today, isn't it? Because you will get found out if you're not, if you tamper with the truth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was interesting last night on one of the news shows. They were talking about how people are getting caught on all these internet spam things with the $24 or $22 million.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to get caught up in those. And I've just launched a crowdfunding project, as you know. I'm thinking, really good timing.
Yeah.
But you can check out the information. You can go and actually say, well, okay, in my case, this crowdfunding thing, does this person actually exist? Does this product exist? Can I actually physically go to an office and see this person? Can I tangibly look at what they're doing? And the answer is yes. If you can't do that, then you probably don't want to go there. And one of the things that we're finding in terms of capital raising now is that crowdfunding is becoming a more conducive way to do it, because you're not having to give percentages of your company away. And when you're reviewing a competition, if you're a one-man band competing with a multinational, you don't have the sort of capital that they have.
No, not at all.
So you've got to either raise the capital, or you've got to think about your strategy to build your business organically. And these days, there's a lot of businesses out there that are using crowdfunding to launch products. There was one I was looking at out of the US today called The Smallest Bed in the World. These guys have started a crowdfunding proposal to actually get the capital to produce their product. And what they're doing is, if you put X amount of dollars in, they'll give you a bed for free when they're launched. So there are some incentives there. Now, your competition, if we go back to the promotional products thing, Vistaprint versus the small person, Vistaprint are not going to go down the crowdfunding route.
No.
But you could.
Mm.
And by doing that, you get your business name out everywhere very, very quickly.
Mm.
So those are the sorts of things that, by knowing what your competition is offering, you can now come back with a completely niche proposal that's going to get out there, because crowdfunding just gets viral like it's unbelievable.
It certainly is.
And that's what you want.
Yeah.
So you're using that tool, you're being upfront about, I'm using this to raise funds for a particular project. This is what you get out of it.
Mm.
And the key there is, I can actually go and look at the product. You can come into my office and look at the product that we're crowdfunding in our case, or you could go to that bed company and say, well, okay, show us the bed. It's there, it's tangible. So understanding that consumers will take some of the advice from the internet, no question asked. But if you're at all concerned, then you have to go back and say, well, okay, this doesn't sound right. Now I start looking at the person or the company that's involved, and you can check them out. And it's as simple as doing a Facebook search, for example. Is this person legitimate?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yep. And but that's all to do with the review of your competition as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you must do that, otherwise, you're really starting the game with a hole in your bat.
Yeah. It's like I say that there's 1,000,001 financial planners, there's 1,000,001 mortgage brokers, there's 1,000,001 naturopaths, there's 1,000,001 of everything out there.
Yeah.
You have to find what differentiates you from them.
Yeah.
And that we call your unique selling proposition, and it has to be something that identifies your what we call X factors, the thing that makes you stand out.
Innovation.
Yeah. So, for example, with one client in his particular industry, we're making him the go-to person.
Mm.
So it doesn't matter where you are in the media, you'll find his name. You have a particular problem to deal with, he's the one that comes up whenever you search Google, whenever you search Bing, whenever you search Yahoo. So it's not just a Google search, it's all of the search engines.
Mm.
You've got to be seen to be the person to go to, and you've got to be seen as being the person with all the answers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. And of course, in all of this, you've really got to have a contingency plan if it all goes south, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. And
so many don't do that, though. Is it because they're backing themselves and they believe that it won't go wrong?
They don't factor in two things. They don't factor in, one, that this could go belly up, because if consumers don't want my product or service, it's not going to happen.
Mm.
But they also don't work out how they're going to exit if the business takes off. So the two areas of contingency planning is, number one, okay, so my great widget product doesn't sell. What am I going to do next? How am I going to recover? What are the things that I'm going to do in this event? And it could be, this is how I'll close the business down, or this is how I'm going to sell it, or this is how I'm going to remarket the product. Mm-hmm. So you've got to be continually looking at the trends in your industry to look at contingencies for that. So, for example, if we were looking at the record industry that we were talking about earlier, the contingency plan there was, okay, what can we put out to compete with compact discs? How can we override that problem? And it could be, well, as we know, Apple did do it. They came out with their iTunes store.
Mm.
Now, there have been attempts since then to come out with a similar product, but because Apple got in pretty much in first and created the market through the iPod revolution, it became a challenge. But there's, if you look at Richard Branson, that never stopped him doing stuff.
No,
he always finds things, and it could be diversification, it could be a complete change of career. But in that whole process, and in the worst case scenario, if the business goes belly up, how are you going to exit? How are you going to get out without losing your shirt?
Mm.
Because if you don't have that contingency plan in place, it's going to cost you everything.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, in the case of the iPod, it became part of the Apple ecosystem, which made it even harder to move away from, and that's how they get you.
Yeah. I mean, Apple, and I have to say I'm an Apple fan.
Oh,
they went
put my name down too.
iPad to the iPhone. The iPhone now has replaced the iPod, because it's got all of the music capabilities within the phone. So this multifunctional device now is my life. It's my diary, it's my music, it's my videos, it's everything that I would want in this little compact piece of equipment. So in their planning, their contingency was, well, okay, we've got the iPod. We have the Apple phone. Now what do consumers want? They want it all in one. So let's now plan forward to create that, which they did. And in the back of their mind was the Dick Tracy watch thing, which they have now produced. So you can actually control all of your music, downloads, your phone, everything from the watch. Personally, I think there's some challenges with the watch, but they'll overcome those. One is battery life.
One is fat fingers.
Yeah. But it's voice activated now.
Yes.
So, it's now getting to that realms of it is totally voice activated. And as a result of that, they will dominate the world. And you do have some competitors coming in the market. Fitbits have brought out a new watch which does similar things to control your music. But ultimately, unless they're offering something uniquely different,
which gets back to our offering, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And assessing your competition and being more innovative with your offer.
Yeah. And when we look at what consumers are wanting, it boils down to the change of things now is far quicker than it was 20 years ago. There's a book by Randy Gage, which I mentioned earlier, called Risky is the New Business, and it was published in 2013. And in that book, he was talking about virtual reality as the new buzz thing. Well, it's there now.
Yes, it is. Big time.
Big time. There's a company has now actively got a virtual reality holosuite, if you like, operating, and that's where life will go. It's going to become the next generation on from television will get you actively involved in your own story. And, where it goes from there, who knows? But the better the quality of the video reproduction is, the thing that they've got to work with now. So they've got to turn that into real life and get interaction from the participants in the thing. But it will be there. I mean, the fact that they've now got that past stage one, stage two will be probably less than 12 months away.
Yes, yeah. And of course, it's also contingent upon a few other things, isn't it? Things like, for example, the availability of broadband internet and that sort of thing. So what comes first? Do you have a look at something like the internet and say, look, I think I can make something fit there, or I can do this, but until the internet catches up with me, then I'm a bit stuck?
I think it comes to the point where the developers create the product and then the delivery mechanism comes after.
Okay.
So if we're looking at this virtual reality thing, the challenge right now is sheer bandwidth.
Yes.
Now, we don't have that available just yet, but in Australia, we've got this NBN coming out, which is supposed to be out for the last 3 years. That's outdated. It's so outdated now that by the time it comes in, a lot of devices will be struggling to use that capacity. So we've got to look at infrastructure planning down the track that will allow us to really get this stuff happening instantly. And if we look at the trend with this video virtual reality, things like Star Wars, you'll be an actor in the Star Wars, you'll be participating in that film. You won't just be watching it, you'll be actively involved in it. And I think that's the shift that will happen in the movie entertainment world, is that you will now be able to play a role in that area. So would you go and buy the DVD of Star Wars? Probably not, because you're now going to be in it.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's going to change the way the movie companies actually operate. But again, they are already down that track. Disney is way, way, way down the track in doing that and have already got some fairly specky stuff about to come out, which will surpass what they've been doing in terms of their animation and so on. But it's the trends.
With everything, and you mentioned it before about how things, the rate of change has progressively got faster over the years. It's like an exponential growth in technology, and it's an exponential growth in the speed in which these things come out. How do you stay ahead of that? How can you predict what the next big thing is going to be? How do you tailor your business to make sure that you're prepared?
That's the perfect question. That's why you need someone like me. Because as I said before, you know your business. Our job is to understand your industry and to look at the trends that are coming in, to look at what people are doing in advance and take your business and say, well, okay, if you say on this path, this is going to happen, but perhaps if you take this slightly different route, one, you'll get a very niche market because you're creating something unique, and secondly, you're going to stay in business because you're up with the trends. I'll share with you one that's about to hit Western Australia. Roof building in Western Australia is still done in a very archaic way. There's a company based in Sydney or New South Wales that has come up with a plan for a standard roof truss that just sits on top of your house. It's bolted together in about 20 minutes, and now you can put your tiles or tin roof on it.
Goodness me.
Now, if you're in the roofing industry, I would be suggesting that you want to have a look at that technology.
Yeah.
Because what's going to happen in this state is the bigger players will say it's cheaper to put up, it's quicker to put up, therefore I'm going to go with it. And a lot of roofing carpenters are probably going to find, oh, I don't have a job. So it's that sort of technology that you really need to be aware of. But as a person that's out there building roofs all day, you don't have the time.
No. And so you need a Gary Jackson on your side,
Correct.
don't you?
You do.
To make sure that you are up with it, and that he will advise you that where you should be looking.
And that's one of the reasons why I don't take a lot of clients on, because I need to have the time to look at the trends in your industry to make sure I'm on top of it and can give you the advice that you need that's going to help you stay in business. You know, there are certain things that will not change dramatically, but certainly the building industry, the way roofing is done and the way walls are put up is going to change. We've seen the changes on the East Coast already. We've seen the changes in other countries. If you go to America, for example, as you've been, when you go around all of the various suburbs, all the houses look the same. They're all made out of timber frame and bang, bang, bang. They're put up in 3 weeks. It's been there for a long time. It will come here.
Yeah. And so our outmoded double brick model will change.
Absolutely. And the primary factor in that is cost. I mean, the cost of building a double brick and tile house is expensive. Whereas if you do the timber frame stuff, it's probably about 2/3 the cost. So people want housing affordability. They also want it done quickly. And I think we'll find that the building industry in the next 5 years will change.
Right. So that's the NBT in the building industry, the next big thing.
Yeah.
Cool. That's fantastic. I mean, and just getting back to the contingency plan for just a moment, should you plan to fail?
Absolutely. Because if you know what is going to cause you to fail, then you know what's likely to help you not fail. So when I go through a process of looking at a business, I look at all of the positives, and then I say, well, okay, what if I don't get that? What's the worst thing that can happen? What's going to happen if this happens? So I now know the good, I know the bad. There's a project I'm personally working on at the moment that I think is going to crash and burn, but that's okay because I can now know a different way of approaching it. And in my case, there's not a lot of capital involved in it. But if I don't go down, if I keep going down this way, then it's going to be a waste of time and effort. But going down this way to a point is now say, well, okay, that's not working. I need to modify how I'm approaching a particular target. I'm now going to change track, and I'll try that. And that comes back down to the process of preparation. You've got to have the ability to say, well, okay, we're going to go down a track, we're going to test the results. If that doesn't work, I'm going to put my contingency plan into place to go down another track. But I've already got that planned. So I'm not going to be losing time or traction in the process.
And Gary, in planning to fail, which I mean it sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? Because you really should plan for success, but you do have to plan to fail. Should you have a walk-away point?
Absolutely.
Right.
And the problem with
you should establish that when you're of clear mind and say, okay, when I get to this particular point, I have to walk away because it's not going to work.
Absolutely. The unfortunate thing with small business and sole traders is they've got blood, sweat and tears invested in this product, and they are emotionally attached to the outcome. So to walk away is like a failure. That's where someone like me comes in and says, well, okay, what you've learned is that this didn't work that way. It's a learning experience, but what you have to do to save your bacon is you've got to walk away from it now. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you will lose your shirt, you'll lose your house, you could potentially lose your family. You've got to look at it very seriously and say, okay, this is the point at which I say no. I had a client in March where we got to that point, but the process of working with them was to get them to the point of saying, okay, it's done, it's a dead duck, close it. And, there was a lot of emotion involved in that decision.
I was just going to bring that up. It is emotional, isn't it? Because you have to be guided in dealing with that, because although it might be a failure, there's always the NBT, the next big thing.
Yeah. The failure is a word I don't like to use, because it's not really a failure. You've actually gone out, you've done what you set out to do. It just didn't make you money. You've now learnt some skills that you can apply to something else. And those skills, you're never going to lose those skills. You may not have your business right now, but you will have learnt how to make it work next time.
But it is an emotional experience.
Very emotional.
Coming to the point and saying, I've tried, but this isn't working, and I really do have to get out of it. Otherwise, I will lose my shirt. But that's a terribly emotional, heartrending thing to do, isn't it?
It's very emotional. It's very stressful. It can impact on people's well-being. And that's why people like myself have got to come in with a very non-emotional process. I cannot get emotionally involved with my clients. No. If I do that, I'm no good to you at all. I've got to be very down the line and say, okay, this is what is working, this is what's not working. Here's the dollar point at which you have to stop. And if they don't, they don't.
Well, yeah, at their peril, they do that. So, look, fantastic stuff, Gary. It's been it's an interesting position to be in, where you've thought of the business idea, you've gone through the process, and it still doesn't go, but you have to have that steely resolve to make that decision to call it quits. And
unfortunately, a lot of the time, if you've got a husband and wife involved, there starts to become a lot of animosity between the two parties. And that, as I said before, can affect the family structure and can cause the family to break down. You've really got to look at it completely independently. And I take a very clinical look at this, and there is me, there is you, and there is the business. Yes, absolutely. This is what's working for me, this is what's working for you, this isn't working for the business. Time to stop.
We've been talking with Gary Jackson of Gary Jackson Consulting, and if you'd like to contact Gary,
you can get me on my website, which is www.garyjacksonconsulting.com, and that's the easiest way to really get a hold of me.
Fantastic, Gary. Thanks so much for your time today, and look forward to catching up with you again real soon.
Yeah, see you next week.
More on the Sattler File shortly.
This is the Sattler File.